Guild Wars is an MMO that released sometime in 2005. As it is still around long enough for it to nearly be able to drink in the United States, it was reasonably successful. One of its most intriguing selling points is it being the first major MMO to adopt a business model not based on monthly subscription fees, meaning you only paid the initial fee to access and download the game, and you could then play it indefinitely, much like many other games that were not massively multiplayer online games. It has plenty more to make it stand out, namely the zone you start playing Chapter 1 Campaign 1 of Guild Wars. There's a surprisingly staggering amount of game to be played just in this zone. As of this video's creation, Guild Wars Reforged is just recently released, hot off the presses of rebranded marketing. Most everyone who kind of knew of what an MMO once was is remembering and thinking to themselves, oh yeah, Guild Wars was a cool game that existed. It's still cool, and it still exists, but it used to too. And it's warming the hearts of jaded Luxon players to see outposts being filled with people. People. Actual real people. You can now make a party of real people to do missions like the Gates of Kryta, or Tanakai Temple, or even Abaddon's Gate. Spamadam has never been spammier. Guild Wars stocks up. Huge. Buy. Or you could do like a surprising number of people, from beginners to multi-thousand-hour veteran encyclopedias do, and play the tutorial area forever. Yeah, no, really, I'm serious. Just like the tutorial area. It's genuinely good. And it's not a new phenomenon. For decades. Oh, Winchester, that hurt to say. People have been just hanging out and playing exclusively the tutorial area of the first campaign. Just people doing the equivalent of playing E1 M1 for years. Oh, what gives? This area, massive as tutorial areas go, admittedly, is just a teeny tiny portion of the entire game. What is the allure of this filthy, aristocratic, human backyard that deserves to be burned and seared to cinders? Well, I have a couple of ideas. Idea 1. Map design philosophy. A Pre Searing map has a seemingly different design document than any other map or area in the game. There are all these little details, small cubbies, entire alternate routes that don't seem to have any purpose other than to exist. Characters hanging out, small towns that aren't the outposts you travel to, and monsters in places that mostly kind of make sense in the context of the world, as opposed to monsters designed with certain encounter or strategy in mind. This leads to a world that feels interesting to explore and see what there is to see. Be wowed by sights that are incredible in 2025, let alone back in the far-off past Paleolithic era of 2005 AD. This isn't saying that there aren't these places in other maps in other parts of the game. In fact, the other starting zones of the other two campaigns also have this sort of philosophy. There's always more to find in Shinji Monastery Island and around Kamadan. You can lose yourself in a lot of the details in Buckdeck Byway. However, exploring these places also has an edge of tedium that Pre Searing Ascalon does not have, which I'll get to in a minute with another thing that I think keeps people around this area. It's built like a diorama that's paced for someone to reasonably walk around in. It has gorgeous set pieces, interesting interactions, nice places. Oh my god, is that a rabbit? It's ugly! Ugly! Idea 2. Class structure. There are 10 classes in the game. Warrior, Ranger, Mesmer, Elementalist, Monk, Necromancer, Assassin, Ritualist, Dervish, and Paragon. They each have their own unique playstyle and philosophy. However, with Guild Wars giving you access to a secondary profession and 8 skills per map, you can easily blur the lines between class identity. For instance, Monk is a healing class. They heal, that's like 3/4 of their kit. They get access to spells that will bring you from the brink of death and keep you from getting there again. So, of course, we all know that the award for best healer in the game goes to Necromancer. Or Ritualist. It's kind of a tie, really. Ritualist has like the better skills, but Necromancer has a better management. However, that's outside of Pre Searing, and possibly one of the appeals. Yes, there are several different interesting and popular unconventional cross-class builds, such as the Whammo, a warrior with smiting spells and healing breeze. The Moes, monks who will use the glyph and fireballs for energy upkeep and damage. the Min Mesmers, who augment their debuffs with minions and single target damage. And if you're having a hard time deciding, just cross into Ranger because they get a pet, and anyone who has ever played a tabletop game knows that action economy is king. But no matter how they cross class, no matter the combination, the primary class still takes the front seat, and you generally know how the character plays. They all have a classic structure that is a solid identity brought by a lack of updating the moveset to accommodate for some 15 years of development. Warriors tank and deal high damage, and you won't be seeing them running around with daggers of all the darndest things. Elementalists deal insanely high spike damage and are generally not your first pick for casting protection spells on the entire party. Mesmers punish with filthy debuffs, but they don't quite have access to the litany of mass knockdowns and CC that they do in the rest of the game. All that to say, the classes in Pre Searing are unique, distinct, and they live out the fantasy of playing certain archetypes of a character. And it's rewarding in its own way to get better at using these characters and leveling them up, to play around with them and learn them in the fascinating ecology of Pre Searing. Idea number 3, community. Guild Wars stocks are up. Huge. Buy. They're going to the moon. And if you ain't on it now, then you're a dummy with lead bars for feet. So yeah, Ascalon City's pretty packed at the moment. Got a ton of people experiencing and re-experiencing Guild Wars. For the first time in a long time, we got multiple instances of Ascalon City. And as mentioned before, we got people in places that nobody has ever seen the ghost of another soul in so long that Easy Pete's about to pack up and move on. Rest of the time though, Ascalon City's still pretty populated. Don't get me wrong, it ain't no Times Square. It's not Kansas either. Or like Chicago. Chicago went up in flames once or twice, right? Was a little searing flame to a population center, am I right? But people are there. Almost all the time. You can always find someone. And there are communities of people, multiple guilds, dedicated to spending time in the Pre-Searing section of Guild Wars. People who are probably in their 50s, sitting on their liquid nitrogen-powered rocking chairs, firing up their quad SLI 5090s to open up their chat box in Guild Wars and say hello to most everyone that can possibly come their way. Well, as much as people have in the way of talking, I think we've forgotten much as a society thanks to cars. Fuck the cars. Idea number 4. Loot that matters. Loot is a very curious thing in Guild Wars. With the release of the bonus mission packs, it only really matters right at the end of the game, or for very specific builds. I know for a fact that I myself have completed all the factions in Nightfall using only like basic requirement 9 weapons, so during the course of playing the game, normally you don't really need to worry yourself with what loot you get. Especially with the bonus mission packs just giving you weapons for basically free. And since you don't have access to those mission packs in Pre-Searing, the loot that you get in the Pre-Searing section of the game now means more than anywhere else in the game. You're now looking at items and being tempted by different statistical numbers. Now trying to optimize and weigh the effects of plus armor while hexed or plus damage while under 50% health. Yes, we do, in fact, very heavily encourage beating a cheating bastard. Absolutely 100% definitely do type in /bonus whenever you load up a new Prophecies character. What are you, some sort of square? Afraid Daddy A-Net's gonna beat you up for having good weapons? Whip, nerd, get in the locker. But on top of the bonus weapons you can get, you cannot obtain the bonus weapon pack as of making of this video because of the release of Guild Wars Reforged, because ArenaNet hates me and my broke poor ass specifically. You could also start getting inscriptions and attachments for these weapons of yours. If you stick around in the Pre-Searing area, Char will become enticing little loot pinatas for you. Each item matters that much more than it does anywhere else in the game. And as a longtime Path of Exile enjoyer myself, itemization is surprisingly important to a lot of people. Not everyone will want to go for the perfect god roll on their little cheater hammer, but it's another attractive mechanic that really only exists in Pre-Searing and in the far echelons of endgame. A butterfly sword? Oh baby. 10-13? Damn, that's actually like not bad. not a bad sword. Okay, big damage increase, cool. Idea number 69. A largely classic experience. RuneScape, World of Warcraft, and even Overwatch all had at least one point in their lives in which they released a version of the game later in their lifespans where players got to go back to how the game used to be. Guild Wars never really had a classic update. They've never gone back to the past or released a version of the game that has had the same allure as a classic version of the game. Or at least not in the same way. The classic version has secretly been there the entire time in the form of Pre Searing Escalon. There are two main components to the allure of a classic edition of a game: nostalgia and a preference for simplicity. Nostalgia is simple enough to explain, especially not to someone whom I suspect is the exact target audience for this video. Like, hey, how have the knees been treating you, friend? You still staying up late, or do we now go to bed at geriatric chimes? What about the 90s do you miss the most? But playing something that we are very familiar with is quite comfortable. You could shut off your brain and just not think about how stuff needs to work. The next part of a classic's allure is the simplicity. Take this bit of mid-game action. I have 8 characters on my team, but with this mission in particular, I'm actually supposed to have 16. And there are at least 7 enemies, each of a different archetype. I'm running a Pious Renewal Dervish build, which is about as brain dead as you can get, and is perfect for crackhead Devil May Cry enjoyers who like to take their Boppic controllers and press as many buttons as possible to see all the colors light up. Which is evidenced by my not paying attention all that much and being confused by why the next time I pay attention to anything other than my pointy stick, my whole team is dead, and I'm left wondering why. Why would the world do this to our beloved, well-known character, Crichton Necromancer, and his beloved gay lover, acolyte Sasuke? That is all to say that, even at something at this scale, combat can be confusing and full of a bunch of effects and numbers and things on screen that knowing what the hell's going on becomes more and more impossible. Guild Wars is helped by already being slowly paced in comparison to many other MMOs, but that clarity gets exponentially muddier even further into the game. Pre Searing doesn't have that problem. At most, you fight against 5 enemies. You and maybe one other friend, you lucky bastard, and likely your cheater imp is there. There are only about 6 different enemy archetypes, all of which have about 3 skills. Engaging with them is a bit of a simple puzzle each time, and something that people have figured out. Which brings back to the human desire for familiarity and the return to what is known, including abusive relationships where they already know that the other person is an abuser. And Sharon, please just return my text. I can help you and show you a better life. Please just don't go back. It's a simple time is all. You know how things go, you see a clear cause and effect, and most every single variation of build just kind of work. But that's it for me for today. I'm pretty sure that if I sat down and I thought about it, then I could probably come up with maybe like 10 or 12 more reasons. Like, for instance, unique mechanics that you would never really find anywhere else in the game, such as death leveling, and like the uniqueness of it all. But that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I love you. You're not obligated to subscribe and worship me and join my Discord and watch my streams or really do anything else, but I would greatly appreciate it. So, thank you. Bye-bye.